Hi, my name is Harrison Bouban, and today I'll be talking about the return of Martin Guerre from Nathalie Zeman Davis. So the book that she writes is about the very popular 16th century case of Martin Guerre. It's a legend now, and a lot of people have talked about it. It's been in movies. It's a very popular case. So this author, Nathalie Zeman Davis, is a Canadian-American author and historian. She's now a professor of medieval history at the University of Toronto, and she was a history professor at Princeton when she published The Return of Martin Guerre. So the book begins with Martin's parents and him leaving their hometown in the Basque country for the county of Foix. They are well-off peasants with a bit of wealth, and they're Protestants. They end up settling in a village called Artigas, and there they start a new life. And Martin marries a woman called Bertrand Rolls, who's also from a well-off peasant family, very likely Protestant too. They marry very young. But the important thing is that after 8 years, they only have one child, and a son named Sanxi. It's very likely that he's impotent. We actually pretty much know that he's impotent, but eventually Martin gets accused of stealing grain from his dad. His dad gets him in prison. He ends up exiled, and he disappears in 1548. He leaves for Spain, and there he joins the Spanish king's army. He fights for the Spanish king, and that's treason for France. But where the story really starts is, well, the return of Martin Guerre. So during the summer of 1650, Martin Guerre returns. After being gone 8 years, he reintroduces himself to his wife and her family and the whole village. And they question him, and he knows a lot of details about Martin Guerre's life, and even personal details about him and his wife. So everyone buys it. I mean, everyone believes it. Why would we not believe him? Because he seems to be the real deal. He kind of looks like him. He knows his details about his life. Sure. But the thing is, him and his wife, Martin and Bertrand, in the next 5 years have 3 different kids. And 3 kids in 5 years is a lot for a man that is supposed to be impotent. So things go sour when Martin starts selling his uncle's property. Pierre is his uncle. Pierre married Bertrand's widowed mother when Martin was away. So Pierre and Bertrand are pretty close now, and Pierre and Bertrand's mother are very close now. So Pierre is really not happy that Martin has been trying to sell his stuff. And Pierre does not believe that Martin is the real Martin. And later on, a soldier comes to the town and says that the Martin they have is not the real Martin Guerre, because the real Martin Guerre lost a leg during the war. Bertrand starts to believe it and takes Pierre's side, and eventually they take Martin to court at Rieux, and which is where they live. Pierre believes that he's found the real identity of Martin Guerre, a man called Arnaud de Thiel, a sort of thug, a big scammer, a womanizer from the nearby village he ends up being condemned and accused of stealing his identity and adultery and these things. He appeals at the Parlement de Toulouse, where he really put in place his eloquence. He's very eloquent, very charming, pretty bright, and his story is that Bertrand is manipulated by Pierre. And he nearly gets away with it. He nearly gets away with it until the real Martin Guerre returns. He has a wooden leg. He looks like the real deal. They question him, and he forgot a few details, but it's normal with time. So everyone agrees that that is the real Martin Guerre. So Arnaud de Thiel is condemned. He eventually admits that he's been stealing his identity, apologizes, and 4 days later he's hanged in front of a Guerre family tree. So that's the whole story. Now, what's interesting and what's important in this, really this tell of the story, is that Davis focuses quite a bit on Bertrand. And she's not only relegated as a completely secondary character. She really has some important elements to her. So Davis gives us elements to believe that Bertrand is complicit, and it's very likely when you think about it, because she's had 3 kids with someone who was supposed to be impotent. It's not normal. They've been living for many years together. She would have found out anyway. She has to be aware of the fact that he's not the real Martin Guerre, so she must be complicit. And what's very interesting is because we saw the Roman Catholic canon laws that were put in place, and we really see the impact there on Bertrand, because since Martin Guerre left for the war, since Martin Guerre was exiled and condemned, she was still married to him, and she couldn't remarry, so she was stuck to being alone during the rest of her life. And being a woman alone back in the days was not a good thing. So the fact that, so it shows us kind of, the problem with that society back in the time, and that a woman being alone was quite difficult, and they really didn't have a choice in that a lot of times. So the kind of theory is that since she knew she couldn't remarry, she had the next best thing, which is having a new husband, who's the same husband, but different, charming and not impotent and more interesting. So she was into it. The other important thing, the other interesting thing that this whole thing points out is the court system, because we've seen the implementation of courts in medieval times, and how crucial it was to the new dynamic of this bureaucratic state, and the new dynamic of interactions and problem solving. And we've seen a lot of it through states, through nobles going after each other in courts, but here we really see a really prime case of the court working in the peasant life. And of course the court is archaic today. It doesn't look like much, but it really shows how incremented in the society it was, this court system, and how important it was. The other important thing is the image of the peasantry we have. The image we have usually of peasantry is just kind of a group of people that are workers, that are just shoveling the dirt, planting taking care of animals, and really we see how peasantry is not a homogenous society at all. They're rich, poor, they're pretty much classes within peasantry back in the days. And you really see that peasants were not just people that were trying to get by day by doing their job. A lot of them had ambition. They were trying to promote their self-interest. They were trying to send in social order within the peasantry. So the peasantry is way more dynamic than we usually see in classes, readings, movies. It's very interesting.